Hi everyone, it's your boy Hardcorn, and today we're going to be looking at past anniversary release characters. I found that they are telling of the game's condition mechanically and the direction they've gone in. Any game has its ups and downs, but when you hit the game's anniversary, it's all about the look and experience. Let's take a look at what they've done in terms of releases and if they really did hit or miss. Now let's take a look at the first anniversary character, Tokiko. Tokiko herself is a longtime fan favorite from Taba, garnering lots of merchandise and many scenes in Taba itself, and in the future with RPGX. It makes a lot of sense to add her into Action Taimanin, as previous releases were all legacy characters, or an OC for the game. She finally makes it in, and competition is pretty stiff. She'd be having to compete with the likes of freshly tuned legacy characters, and establish herself within the fabric of the game. Tokiko does that by being one of the game's most difficult to use and expensive to gear characters. Her supporter that released alongside her was for niche purposes and critical annihilation, but you ended up having better options even back then. Tokiko's kit was all over the place, with extremely long cooldowns, mismatching cooldowns, poor effects, inescapable slow animations, long weak strings, the list goes on. The saving grace of her was the very strong unique buff she has called Clairvoyance. It gives super armor and defense up, which allowed her to cut in and actually get her skills off. It only existed in blue, and at the time blue damage boosting was limited to niche situations. Her model in-game did not look very well. Unnatural poses, various clipping, strange texture warping, everything is truly against her, and it took over 3 years for her problems to be truly addressed in her renewal. Tokiko is a great example of a product of her time. One character before her, Noah, is the exact same way. These characters are not fun to play outside of one specific build, and the investment is counterintuitive when you can use many other characters that can do more with less, even on year 1. The first year was full of trying different gimmicks with the characters released. Some have stood the test of time with their base kit, and others have required minor tweaks and eventual reworks. Tokiko has sat in this boat of mediocrity in an ocean of disappointment until her renewal. This for certain was a lessons learned. Now we'll move on to the second anniversary. The Witch of Steel Anne Rose Vajra arrives into the game. She was the winner of the popularity poll put out by Gremory itself, so that they would make sense to put her in the game. This is also considered a collaboration character by Gremory. As an aside, the translation quality in Action Taimanin is dubious at best. Their biggest problem is mostly syntax, proofreading, and misnomers. This is one case of a misnomer. Collaboration typically gets used for franchises outside of the game, like how RPGX does it with Ikitosen and Black Lagoon. Anne Rose is a Lilith property, so this would have been more of a crossover. Now back to it. To get Anne Rose is different than any other character. You can only use actual money. She cannot be purchased for gems. Due to laws regarding gacha internationally, once something like this is made for purchase and not explicitly stated to be available for gems at a later date, just like a normal release, you can't get her with gems. Thanks to a fan favorite official poll winner being released for cash only, you can bet that it created a lot of bad blood between the player base and Gremory. It is typically seen as a very greedy move and ill will towards the player base. It's not surprising to hear that many players at the time were to leave, but I don't have access to that kind of data to see how it affected retention. This is a huge moment for the game, as it now affects how they will go forward. No more of those cash-only characters. Anne Rose gets heavily discounted a few times a year, since they can't make her for free, or else they're going to get reamed by some government. Every time Annie gets something, the Coles get stoked about her again, and the effects of the anniversary will still be felt. Not to mention the fact that the farming event for the anniversary was gear for Anne Rose, that most people can't even use its effect due to not having the character. It makes a pretty damn great stat stick for Asagi. Anne Rose herself, in a gameplay sense, is a culmination of many characters thus far, and is a celebration of legacy characters with that early game feel. Many bits and pieces are shared between Anne Rose and other characters like Kurenai, Murasaki, Astaroth, Asagi, and Rinko. Anne Rose is the first character to share weapons with somebody too. She shares with Asagi, so people who have leveled her in the first place were able to get the Steel Witch up and running really fast. Shared gear is something that they go on to do very often, which I like a lot. The idea of taking bits and pieces from other characters is to get started and make your own identity from there. Anrose has attacks with flavor from her eroge and how she fights inside it. The theming is there, sprinkled about, though it certainly could be better. If she were a more modern character, her extreme dodge that gives 4 buffs at once would be a super all-in-one instead of 4 individual ones. Her generalist setup is almost mirroring Asagi in purpose, fitting that they share weapons. She finds a home in VR with all of her suction, healing, buffs, and debuffs. This being year 2, they have really figured things out on what is working on characters and begin to integrate them together. All the characters released from 1st to 2nd anniversary are mostly janky powerhouses, and Anrose joins the fun. That is, if you are willing to really pay the price for effectively Asagi too. Next, we'll be moving on to the 3rd anniversary. Aishu Hebiko is a character that has been in the game since the very beginning. She's a little girl with Sheikah on the Hebi Sheikah promotion that they always run. Everyone knows what she looks like and has been featured as a boss in several events. It's an inevitability that they would add her into the game. Though with that thinking you could say the same for Fuma or Sheikah as well. But that's beside the point. Hebiko is a cheerful and fun girl with octopus powers. Who else is cheerful and fun? Sakura. She shares gear with Sakura since they're both dagger users and it makes a lot of sense. This 3rd year marked them also trying to release a side project, Taimanin Go-Go, which costs a lot of money. Go-Go itself was a diversion of resources from Action Taimanin and it was plighted with mismanagement. Year 3 suffered for it and the effects are only now waning. The year itself is filled with what I would like to call sequel characters. Aina is the first character to share with Yukikaze, Shisui is the melee version of Emily, Saika the utility version of Asuka, Nagi just being her powerhouse self as more of an accompaniment to Rin, and this year also introduces Eleanor, the first character to share with Kirara. To round out the founding 3, Hebiko is Sakura's sequel. Hebiko being a famous character is the safest anniversary choice and would not bring any heat like it did the previous year. Others will clamor for more fat tit cow characters or justice for flatties on the anniversary. This mid-range little octoling was truly the best option to satiate the player base. A solid, safe character who doesn't play like crap and can quietly be put to the side as the box is checked. Theming is an aspect they really improved on along with the tails. Not just on Hebiko, but on lots of other characters too. Hebiko herself is all about using her ink and transforming her body parts into tentacles to take out enemies. Multiple skills have her transform her body or call upon her octopus to deal damage. You can tell this is a character they had fun making, and it's pretty obvious. Her unique buff Devil Ink being a massive heal and makes her invisible to enemies until attack or duration end is actually fitting with the biology of octopi and how they use it to escape. Her tentacle attacks that she produces are affected by what costume she wears. It's limited, but it's a detail that doesn't get used too often, so it's appreciated here. She can even propel herself like a rocket by blasting ink to deal damage. They went for the cute and funny technical angled character. Hebiko does not do that much damage even with limited gear. She's quite literally just a middle of the road, not too bad, not too good type of character. You'd end up forgetting her in the game unless you really like her or have a lot of investment. And finally, we are at 4th anniversary. Inage is the addition they went for, and is an even further demonstration about what they've learned on making a fun character. Foxy Grandma herself is an addition from RPGX. Her and a few other characters released the same year are from the game as well. It sort of perpetuates the idea if they have fat tits or are popular in RPGX, they will arrive in Action Taimanin. Francis and Phantasma have notable assets to them to understand why they got in, but Spinel and Lapis are OCs for the year. Inage also joins the club of a new character having a passive effect which they've introduced in year 4. These add great effects for the characters and allies, which adds that little bit of layer of strategy inside. Inage's falls into the more selfish type similar to Francis, which specifically only buffs herself. Even though it is counted as a buff, in reality though, it's just a resource. Due to VR being the content treadmill, they have made it so that new characters have some sort of a team utility. These sort of changes show the direction the game is going in, with its high-end content and teamed content as well. Critical rate boost is minimal or relegated to niche setups. Flat damage or defense is the name of the game since it boosts, but isn't as explosive as criticals. Many characters released have just that, or even a speed boost built inside for a little bit extra DPS. Foxy Grandma herself is the next generation of generalist characters. She can do so much for herself while helping the team to an extent that on paper she seems super strong. In practice though, she hits the mark on just most of her targets, not all. Her team supporting features are in the form of fortitude and a max HP scaling heal, and even then they're okay at best. She has one of the most desirable 81 skills, with power release due to it giving attack, speed, and super armor to make sure she gets that hit in and it hits really hard. It really amps up her actions per minute because you want that buff up very often since it's a huge benefit at a minimal HP cost. It makes her feel busier than she actually is. Thanks to having this skill being so good, it's a confirmed slot. It inadvertently though limits her kit. Because of that, she wants Hebishika active to get full use out of her skills. Does she need that though? Absolutely not. You can ride or die with 3 of them, it's okay. Her damage isn't as explosive as someone like Ignis, Ingrid, or Spinel because she's inherently not designed to do that outside of critical annihilation. With her blue set, she's all about her melee strings being fast and inflicting her unique debuff, Puncture, and red is about team support with debuff application, defense down, AoE expansions. It sort of relegates her to a supporting role in VR. She does this role quite well with keeping up the heat. Thematically, this is nice because she assists Taimanins from the shadows in a less obvious role. This way of giving support while knowing how to flex works out really well for her. In terms of a model though, Inage's is absolutely stunning. It's through the roof in terms of design. The costumes hit hard with removable features and coloring spots, and they were even so kind to give you a flesh tone on default for some of those costumes. Not to mention, it's the absolute curvature in that her tits are totally floating with how big they are. It's great. You'd almost think they're a Raida creation, but in reality it's actually Shindol in action. Inage is a very hard-hitting and good choice for the 4th anniversary and leads into the future of characters in Action Taimanin. Thank you for coming by everybody and learning about the anniversaries past. Hopefully the game lasts long enough in the future that we can do this once again and look back on even more years of gameplay. Don't forget to like, comment, rate, favorite, and subscribe. And as always, I'll see you next time. Goodbye everybody.